Hi everyone, you don't want to miss this episode of AI Show. We will learn what's new with language services. Hi Hazem, welcome to the AI Show. Thanks for being here.
Of course, I am happy to be here.
Can you start by introducing yourself and what you do at Microsoft?
Sure. So I am a PM for the Language Cognitive Service, which is a new unified service that I'm happy to kind of show you today what it can do and what it is and where we're going as well.
Can you tell us more about what are the problems that our language services are solving?
So in this day and age, it's very hard to kind of automate certain processes. So especially when you have a lot of text, to analyze that text and actually get the value out of it becomes very difficult. So language cognitive service should make it much easier. Think of things like being able to classify customer support emails into certain categories so you can just process them faster and route them quicker, or maybe even just finding the answer in a bunch of documents that you might have using a automatic knowledge base, or simply being able to interact with your customers using natural language so you don't have to make them wait for someone to help them, that they can just help themselves immediately.
Oh, that's a lot of things that you could do that. Are you going to show us in action?
Yes, absolutely. I can start sharing my screen.
Okay.
So cognitive service for language should allow you to transform your businesses with AI and specifically natural language processing. But before I go into cognitive service for language, I have to quickly brief about the original products that exist as part of cognitive services. So originally there were three independent services: text analytics, language understanding, and Q&A maker. Text analytics allowed you to have multiple pre-built capabilities for natural language processing, such as analyzing sentiment or being able to summarize text or even extracting personally identifiable information. In language understanding, most commonly known as LEWIS, you could create your own custom language models for intents and entities that would allow you to understand conversational language from your customers and classify those queries that they're sending you into certain intents or actions, and extract out the relevant entities or pieces of information. And with Q&A Maker, you could build your own custom knowledge base where if you wanted to ask a question within that knowledge base, it would extract out the answer immediately. So those are the three services that existed as part of the cognitive services. And what's coming new is cognitive service for language, where all of these three independent products are now features under one umbrella. This one unified service is now going to be much more powerful. It is much easier to use as well, with one Azure resource, one user experience, one SDK, and even one set of APIs. All of this should be much easier to use for developers. And you'll also be getting a more cohesive, simpler, and powerful product. So it is based on state-of-the-art technology, and it is also multilingual, and this applies to our custom capabilities, where you can train our custom capabilities in one language and immediately train them and test them out in other languages.
That sounds really amazing. And it was kind of confusing to me to use all of these different services like text analytics and LEWIS. I'm so glad to hear they're all one service now.
Yeah, and what's great about it is we're categorize them into three easy to understand categories. So you can classify text, extract information, or understand conversations. Now, if you're familiar with all of those three individual products, these might be familiar features to you, and there are a few new ones that have actually been introduced. So when you come to classify text, you could have always analyzed sentiment and mine opinions, detect language, and what's coming new is custom text classification, where you can actually create your own custom classifiers for your large pieces of text that you would find in documents, for example. And for extracting information, you could extract out PII, key phrases, and others. And also one of our brand new features is being able to create your own custom entities using custom named entity recognition. And finally, for understanding conversations, the two other products, such as language understanding or LEWIS and Q&A Maker, are now in their new and improved versions called custom question answering for Q&A Maker and conversational language understanding for LEWIS. And these should all be much more powerful alternatives to the ones that you had previously. All of these features and capabilities will actually be available as part of the Language Studio, which is one portal that should allow you to try out any pre-built capabilities, as well as build out any of our custom capabilities directly from the UI without having to write a single line of code.
I love that. This is enabling a lot of people to work together and different experts work together just through the studio. I really want to see it in action. It looks beautiful.
Great. So I can just jump to the demo when all I would have to do is sign into language.cognitive.azure.com. And let me just jump to the demo here. And here is Language Studio. The first thing that shows up when you sign in is that you have to select a language resource, or you can create one. So if you're familiar with cognitive services, you usually have to create resources to access the services. In this case, you have to create a language resource. And if you don't have one already created, you can simply click here to create one, or you can create it through the Azure portal under language. And I already have one here, so I'm just going to select it. And that gives me access to the Language Studio, which has all of those different capabilities that we just discussed available here to simply click through and try out immediately. I'm going to be showing one pre-built capability and then one custom capability. So I'm going to start with Extract Health Information, which is a pre-built capability that should allow you to extract out relevant information for medical purposes. Over here is when you click through, you get this view that allows you to enter in your own text, but we can actually use one of the samples that are provided by the Language Studio. The sample here says patient needs to take 100 milligrams of ibuprofen and 3 milligrams of potassium, and along with some other prescriptions. And then I simply have to acknowledge that running this demo will incur a charge. And then when you press on run, you actually get the analysis of that piece of text that was provided here in this user-friendly view. In this analysis, you'll see that it was able to extract out dosages from this prescription, such as 100 milligrams, 3 milligrams, 10 milligrams. And you'll also see that it's able to extract out those medication names, ibuprofen, potassium, and Colmidine over here as well. And you can actually associate each of those to a database of known medicines that are very familiar here. And we are simply using one of them, but you can actually get all of these at the same time. So if you're interacting with a known database for medications, you can actually easily extract it immediately from Extract Health Information here. And another thing is that you can actually see the relationship between dosages and medication names. So even though I was able to extract out all of these pieces of information immediately, I might have not been able to identify which dosage belongs to which medication name. But with Extract Health Information, we do create that relationship for you and visualize it over here using this connection. You'll see here that this dosage is actually the dosage of medication for this medication name.
This is really, really cool.
And what you can also do is just see the exact JSON response, since these are all available as APIs. And this is the JSON response that you would get if you were to call that endpoint directly. You'll see here the dosage is extracted, the medication is extracted, as well as the links to those known data sources for medications as well. So all of those are immediately available as part of the JSON, and you can switch between the JSON response or the friendly user result that you see here as well. And all of our pre-built capabilities follow this exact same paradigm. It should be very easy to use. It should be very easy to analyze the actual response that you would get from using the endpoint or the API. And any of these should be very familiar for all the other capabilities that are available as pre-built capabilities. Now to jump to a custom capability, the one that I'll be demoing is conversational language understanding. So over here, I can see that I can simply click through to conversational language understanding, and it will take me to create my own project. And when I create a new project, I'll have two options that I can create. There's the conversation project, which allows me to create my own custom intent classifiers and entity extractors, or an orchestration workflow project, which is a bit more involved, where you can actually connect multiple conversation projects, or even question answering knowledge bases, or even loop classic Lewis applications to one endpoint, and that one endpoint will route your request to the appropriate underlying service. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to focus on the conversation project. And once you press next, you simply have to provide a name, and let's try to create a flight booking app. And over here, I'll actually be able to select the primary language of my project. But you'll see here there's this extra checkbox that allows me to enable multiple languages. And what that will do is it will allow me to predict for not just the language that I'm training in, but also other languages straight out the box. And we'll be demoing that shortly as well. So after you press next, you can simply press create, but I already have one that's been created for me. So let me just jump over here. And what you'll see here on the left is this navigation menu that should be very similar to across all the other custom capabilities that we have. This should be a very similar experience. Once you build one thing in Language Studio for a custom project, you should be able to do it for all the other custom capabilities as well. The first thing that we start off with here is the build schema page, where you can create intents and entities. Intents are the actions that your users might take, such as booking a flight or trying to check into a flight, or simply querying a timetable like when is the next flight to London. Or entities, which are the relevant pieces of information within your customer queries, such as the booking reference or the destination city or the source city. And after you add and create those custom intents and entities, you now have to provide data to train those intents and entities. So over here, it should be very simple to simply select which intent that you're actually trying to create, and then or add data to, and simply say something like book a flight from Cairo to Montreal. Then you can add that as an example, and then easily label that with this source and destination by simply hovering over it quickly. And then once you're done, finally, you can save your changes. Now, after your changes are saved, you can go ahead and train a model or override an existing model. And then after that, I'll jump to getting to deploy your model. Simply all you have to do is deploy a model over here, click deploy, but this one is already deployed, and then you can try it out immediately again in the Language Studio. So everything that you can do when it comes to creating your project, adding data, training, deploying is all available directly through the studio. And then once you're done deploying, you can test out that endpoint. And we can actually try out things like check me into my flight, or hashtag ABC123, and run that as a test. And you'll see here, I get the top intent check in flight with a high confidence score, and then it was able to extract out the booking reference number, pound ABC123, and you'll see the JSON response that I get as well, very similar to the other capability that we showed earlier. You'll get the exact response that you would get if you were to call this endpoint directly. And we can actually try something like book me a flight from Toronto to Mexico, and run that as a test. And you'll see here I get the top intent, which is book flight. I get my source and destination, which are in fact Toronto and Mexico. But let's talk about the multilingual capabilities of this custom service. So let's try to translate this using Bing Translator to another language. Let's translate this to French, for example. Now I'm going to copy this over, come back, run that test. And even though I only trained in English data, I was still able to predict against this multilingual model using a French example. So using this French example, I got the right top intent, I got the right source and destination as well, even though I trained entirely in English. We can actually try out other languages as well. So let's try German, for example. We'll try that and then paste that in and run that test. And once again, you'll see that we got the right intent, the right source, and the right destination. You'll see here, even with a different spelling of Mexico, because this is the German spelling, we still were able to correctly extract out the destination. And we can also try out something like simplified Chinese, which is in a completely different script. Go back, paste this in, run that test. And what you'll see here, I was still able to get the right top intent. I was still able to get a source and destination. And just to make sure that these are in fact Toronto and Mexico, let's just copy them over and translate them back. So this one that I just copied should be Toronto, which was the source. And we can go back, copy over the destination, and just check whether or not that's also Mexico. And it is. So even though I've trained only with a few examples, this is actually exactly 12 examples, I was able to train my model, deploy it, and then immediately predict it with other languages, even though I only used English data for those 12 examples.
This is truly mind-blowing to me. So you can customize it once and then use it in any language that we are supporting. And how many languages are we supporting?
We support up to 19 languages officially, but under the hood, you can actually try out multiple different languages. Simply, the ones that we officially support are the ones that we've validated, but up to 100 languages are actually supported.
There's lots of exciting news, but which ones were the new ones for Ignite?
So the fact that this language studio is now available is one of the new releases of Ignite, as well as these new capabilities, conversational language understanding, which is the next generation of LUIS, as well as custom named entity recognition and custom text classification, which are similar to conversational language understanding, but for larger pieces of text. These are all three new features and capabilities that are currently in public preview, as well as the unification of those services, text analytics, question answering, and LUIS. All of those are now features under the unified language service. And custom question answering as well has gone GA. For those that are familiar with Q&A Maker, it used to be called Q&A Maker V2. That was in public preview and is now in GA as a feature under the unified language service.
Mm-hmm. And what happened to the older services like Q&A Maker and LUIS individually?
Great question. So LUIS and Q&A Maker, their original old versions will still be maintained as GA services, so you can still use them. They will not have any disruption of service. And Text Analytics has simply been rebranded to the language service. So the only change in terms of a Text Analytics customer should just be that they now expect to see language instead of Text Analytics. And everything has been unified under that umbrella.
That makes life so much easier. This is great. And so where can people learn more about this?
So you can go to any of these three links to get started. You can go to language.cognitive.azure.com to sign into the Language Studio and try out those capabilities, as I just showed. You can get started in Azure by creating that resource by going to aka.ms/language-azure. And you can even go to the documentation at aka.ms/language-docs to try to read through the documentation and learn more about each of these features and capabilities.
Great, thank you. We really appreciate you coming in and telling us about these new services and features.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining, everyone. We learned about unified language services and custom bilingual capabilities. Join us next time.